For those of you who may or may not be aware, in April of 2020, that was last year, the governor signed a policy and identified California as being in a state of emergency. This was due directly to the COVID pandemic that started in March. And what that did is it gave the California Public Utilities Commission, the organization that regulates energy and telecommunications, as well as other industries throughout California, the opportunity and the authority to create emergency protections to help California's families as we try to deal with the crisis and the pandemic here. And what these protections do is provide protections for both residential and small business utility customers. And the protections cover regulated utilities, specifically electric, gas, water, sewer, and telecommunications companies, which we'll talk about later. And when I say regulated, I just want you all to get in your mind, this does not cover municipal utilities, and we'll go over that a little bit more. And the order originally was put in place for 1 year from the time that he signed it, which was April of 2021. Just last week, the commission extended the moratorium, and the moratorium will be in place, remain in place through June 30th, 2021. Now, since they've extended it once, we want to let you know that if you come to a training next month, we may be telling you different information because the landscape of utilities and energy and telecom is changing so quickly, with all regulatory bodies, particularly the CPUC, trying to respond to the needs of families in California, their need for energy and telecommunications. Now, what a moratorium does, we'll discuss later, but we're going to get a little bit more into the details of who is covered. And this will also give you an indication of who is not covered. All customers of Pacific Gas and Electric, San Diego Gas and Electric, Southern California Edison, and Southern California Gas are covered by this moratorium. On the telecom or communication side, customers of AT&T, Frontier, Sprint, and Verizon are also covered under this moratorium. So you might be asking, what does this moratorium do? Great question. Next slide. For energy customers, this means that there are no disconnections for non-payment through June 30th, 2021. You do not have to call the utility company. You do not have to fill out any paperwork. There's nothing that needs to be done. This is a compulsory moratorium on energy usage. Therefore, no one should be getting shut off during this time. No one should be receiving shut-off notices. In addition, there is no deposit or late fee charges for anyone who does not pay their bill on time. Anyone seeking to pay their bill during this time qualifies for a 12-month payment plan, and that is offered to all customers regardless of income status, change in status, job status. Additionally, there's no income verification needed for care and fair discount programs. This means for customers who are currently on care and FARA, there is a time period where they are required to reauthorize their care and FARA, and they receive documentation from the utility to do that. During this time period, none of that documentation should be sent to customers, and customers are not required to recertify or verify for the care and FARA program. This also means if your status has changed and you went from maybe not being eligible for Care and Fair programs, which are discount programs for low-income customers, you will not be required to provide any documentation of your status, your job loss, or change of income status at this time. I'd just like to remark before we go to this slide that when you receive a payment plan, a 12-month payment plan, can you go back to the other slide, Jorge? When you receive a 12-month payment plan, the utilities are required to ask for no more than 20% of the total balance during the time for the initial payment for the 12-month program. The other very important key thing that I want folks to understand here is that a 12-month payment plan, if we are during a moratorium time period, really doesn't make sense if you are in a financial crisis. So we suggest that if folks have the status of their job has changed, their income has changed, they're experiencing challenges or difficulties that would impede them from paying their bills, particularly if paying this bill would mean that you cannot get medicine, that you cannot get food or other things that you need for the health and care of your family, that we encourage you not to pay these bills at this time and do not enter into a 12-month payment arrangement. However, if you are fortunate enough to be able to pay the bill in its totality or pay something on the bill, we encourage you to encourage your folks to pay what they can on the bill, because as we know, the moratorium does not mean that they are erasing the debt. It means that they are holding the debt. And we are not sure if there will be provisions to ever erase this debt at all. And so folks would find themselves in a situation where the delay of payment could put them in a financial bind down the line. So again, we do not encourage folks to enter into a 12-month payment plan if this would mean you would not be able to meet your other basic needs like rent or food or other basic needs, medication. Now let's talk about communications. There's so much on this page, I just was like, what is this? Now I know, I wrote it. So communications emergency customer protections are a little bit different, and they've changed recently just within the last week as well. So we'll go over this in detail, and I'll make note of areas where it drastically differs from the emergency protections for energy. One, the protections for emergency customers and communication prohibits disconnections for non-payments. It also prohibits late fee charges. It applies to both residential and small business customers. And customers, and this is very key, customers must self-certify financial hardship in order to qualify. I'm going to put a quiz question on the next training that we do because I want people to be very, very clear on what this means. This means this is not a compulsory, my language is all over the place, compulsory mandate. So unlike energy, no one is being cut off. No one needs to call the PG&E or SoCal Gas. You don't need to do anything. It is in place. That is not the case for communications. Therefore, while it does prohibit disconnections, folks can get cut off. And this is where we really need the help of service providers and advocates to get the word out there, because the word won't get out there unless we spread this word and let folks know that they will have to take an active part in the process to prohibit or stop a disconnection. And that would be to call their telecommunications company, Verizon, Sprint, AT&T, any of those, and let them know that you are experiencing a financial hardship, and that will trigger the prohibition of a disconnection. Now, this prohibition applies to wireless, wireline, and VoIP, which is voice over internet protocol service customers. But it does not apply to customers who have prepaid wireless phone service or broadband. And we use broadband. For many of you, you'll just think of internet, and that's accurate as well. Broadband is actually what brings the internet, makes you able to connect to the internet. All right. Finally, companies are required to offer payment plans. Now you'll notice here, I want you to understand that the language is different, that the language is not as specific. So we're not sure how long folks will get a payment plan. They're not guaranteed a 12-month payment plan. We want you to make sure to advocate for yourselves, for your clients, for your customers, from whoever, to get the payment plan that fits with a reasonable payment plan that fits within their budget. In other words, if the company is offering you a $50 a month payment, but you really can only afford 25, then you're going to need to be aggressive to make sure when it does come time to pay that bill, that you get a payment plan that you can afford. This is where so many of us, because we feel bad sometimes when we can't pay our bills, make agreements and arrangements with companies that we really can't keep. And it makes us fall further and further behind. And it also increases the amount of stress that we have on ourselves, and makes it incapable for us to care for ourselves and our family. So please be sure to help us spread the word that folks will have to self-certify financial hardship to take advantage of this new protection. And the other thing is that this protection is only valid for 90 days. So it started last week and it will only go through April. We're hoping that this too will be extended and expanded, but at this point, advocacy to that end is still ongoing. All right, and finally, while TURN does not work specifically on water issues, we did want to offer some information because it is extremely important for those folks who might also be struggling with water issues. We know that utilities are the largest, single largest debt outside of rent that folks have to contend with, and particularly in these difficult times. So right now, water companies and water districts that are regulated by the California Public Utilities Commission are not charging any reconnection fees. They are not charging deposits required for reconnections or reestablishing water services. They have been asked and are required to provide reasonable payment plans. Again, when we don't have language that's strong that says what those reasonable payment plans are, it is going to be incumbent on either the advocate, service provider, or the customer themselves to make sure that they receive a payment plan that is reasonable to them. All right. And they've been asked to minimize disconnections for non-payment.
Thank you, Constance. That was fun. On June 11th of last year, June 11th, 2020, the Public Utilities Commission here in California voted unanimously to enact new and important protections for energy customers. I'm going to highlight a few of the most important, and I want to just make clear that what I'm talking about now are permanent protections. I mean, you know, permanent insofar as barring anybody coming back and fighting us on this. These will be in place even after the moratorium ends. Okay, some other important wins that we got are no more deposits, no deposits to establish service, and no deposits to reestablish service after a shutoff. None of your utility companies should be charging a deposit. And if you do have the experience, this actually happened to me. I moved recently to Southern California and I was charged a deposit. And sadly, most customers don't know that they should not be charged a deposit. But because I work for Turn, I got to call up Edison and say, hey, you got to take this off my bill, right? So if you do have the experience of someone being charged a deposit, let us know, because we can make sure that the PUC cites the utility for doing this, because they are not supposed to charge deposits anymore. And the third thing I want to highlight here has to do with the paying previous tenants' bills. We used to hear from folks at trainings like this that we did in person that their customers were often required to pay a previous tenant's bill. And when people would fight back, the utility would say, well, we conducted an investigation and we know you lived there before. And people out of desperation would agree to pay a previous bill. We want to let you know that there are new rules governing this that make it harder for utilities to get away with it, but that if you continue to have this experience, again, please let us know so that we can make sure to put an end to this unfair, unjust billing practice. I'm going to say there's two other things that are currently being rolled out. One is an arrearage management plan. The arrearage management plan will make it so that any CARE and FARA customer who is carrying a lot of utility debt has a way to be forgiven for that debt, up to $8,000. If you're interested in learning more, we will be doing a deeper dive into the arrearage management plan. That's our training number 4. So be sure to register for that if you're interested in learning about this new important program. Next slide, please, Jorge. Okay. Now, I'm going to share with you a few strategies that you can use to help your clients prepare for what happens when the moratorium ends in 2021. There are 4 things here that I want to share with you. 1, customers should do everything they can to keep their bills as low as possible between now and June 2021. 2, customers should take advantage of any programs for which they qualify. 3, customers should choose the rate structures that will keep their bills the lowest. And 4, customers should pay what they can between now and June 2021. Because as Constance said, while no one should forego food or other needs during this time, those bills will still come due at the end of the moratorium. And so we want to find ways to help people keep those bills low. Okay. Do me a favor and go to your reactions and give me a thumbs up if you've been to a Turn training before. Let's see, I'm scrolling through. I see Nora, Renee. Okay, handful of y'all. So if you've been to one of our trainings before, you know that while Turn advocates for conservation and green energy policies, we don't believe that customers can conserve their way to lower bills. So instead, our strategy is to hold utility companies accountable for providing safe, reliable, and affordable energy services for everyone. But right now, these are unprecedented times. So I am going to encourage you to tell your clients that they should keep their bills as low as possible between now and June of 2021. The reality is that we should all be doing our part to conserve energy. So that's the first strategy. Now, instead of listing off, I think the last time I did this, I rattled off a list of energy saving tips. So instead of doing that, we're going to make this a little, I'm going to crowdsource this a little bit and put, Jorge has placed a link in the chat box. If you could go to this link, you will find what we call a Padlet. And in that Padlet, you can go to the lower right-hand corner where there's a little red plus sign, hit a plus and share with us one of your favorite energy saving tips, whatever those might be. And I'll add one here as well. Nobody's got any tips? Let me see what mine. Oh, I see some popping up here. Unplug. Turn the heat at night. Turn the heat down at night while sleeping. Yes. Solar panels. Wash clothes after 9 p.m. We're going to come back to that. That's a good point. Bundle up with blankets and lots of sweatshirts. Turn down the thermostat. I like that one. Lends itself well to lots of cute word games. Turn the lights off when not in use. Yes. Blackout curtains. Yes, make sure to condense washing loads to larger loads. Did you know you can also include a dry towel with your laundry, your wet laundry in the dryer, and that will help dry your clothes faster and more energy efficiently? That's one I learned from our previous organizing director, Ana Montes, who many of you probably know. All right, this is great. All right, feel free to keep adding them in there as they come up in your head for you. All right, next slide, please, Jorge. Another important resource for people who may be struggling to make ends meet are all of the support programs that are offered by the utility companies. I'm only going to provide a very, very brief overview because we will also be doing a primer for folks in training 3 that will be a more in-depth look at these programs, how they work together. So there are 2 low-income programs. These are specifically for customers struggling to make ends meet. They're known as CARE and FARA. CARE is a program available to any customer whose household income falls below 200% of the federal poverty guidelines. After we wrap up today, we will be sharing all of our fact sheets with you, so you'll see the exact numbers there. The CARE program provides a 30 to 35% discount on electricity and an additional 20% discount on natural gas. So savings can range from $400 to $650 a year. FARA is a program for people who make just a little bit too much money to qualify for CARE. Customers qualify for FARA if their household has at least 3 people in it and their income falls between 200 and 250% of federal poverty guidelines. FARA customers receive an 18% discount on their electric bills, which can add up to about $140 each year in savings. Applications for both of these programs can be found online at the utility company's website. The next program is interesting because it is not means tested, which means that anybody making any amount of income can qualify. It's called medical baseline. At Turn, we like to say that medical baseline is the best kept secret in California because only about 10 to 20% of people who are eligible are actually enrolled. Medical baseline, as I said before, is available to any customer who uses a medical device that uses gas or electricity, or any customer who requires additional heating or cooling to maintain their health. There are no income requirements. And customers can receive medical baseline in addition to CARE and FARA. So customers on medical baseline can receive discounts ranging from $250 to $550 annually. And right now, because of COVID, customers can fill out the medical baseline application online and submit it without having it certified by a healthcare professional. So that certification process sometimes acts as a barrier. That barrier is not present right now, at least through June. So if you know people, have clients, relatives who use electric equipment or need heating or cooling to maintain their health, you can go on to your utilities website and register immediately. CARE, FARA, and Medical Baseline are available to all utility company customers of PG&E, SoCalGas, SoCal Edison, and SDG&E, okay? Regardless of immigration status. This is really important because we have seen CARE enrollment drop during the previous presidential administration. So we want to get those numbers back up. So regardless of immigration status, these three programs cannot be used against customers undergoing naturalization as part of the public charge rule. Okay, anyone who is a customer of the utilities qualifies, regardless of everything else. You qualify if you meet the income eligibilities. This cannot be used against you. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about cash assistance. LIHEAP is the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. This is a program administered by the federal government that provides small grants and other supports to utility customers. But because LIHEAP is a federal program, some administrators will not make it available to customers who do not have a Social Security number. Another important source of cash assistance are programs run by the utility companies themselves. These are usually paid for with shareholder money. So PG&E has the REACH program, SDG&E has the Neighbor to Neighbor program. The Gas Assistance Fund is available to customers of SoCalGas, and Southern California Edison has the Energy Assistance Fund. Again, customers can learn more about those programs at the individual company websites. Okay, we're going to launch another poll now. I am going to ask you a question about how your energy is billed. And so for those of you who may have done one of these trainings in our last iteration, you might already have looked at your bill and know the answer to this. So what rate structure do you currently have with your utilities? Do you have a tiered rate structure? Are you on time of use? I know some of you are on time of use because you said something about not washing clothes until after 9 p.m. Are you on IOU rates or you don't know? Okay, the answers are coming in. Lots of folks still on tiered rates. I believe at least one of the companies defaulted everyone into time of use at some point. So you always have a choice though. If you are in one type of rate structure, you always have a choice to go into your account and have it changed. So I encourage those of you who don't know to take a look at your bills and know how you're being billed. Okay, got about 36 people who voted. Most people are still on a tiered rate structure. That's very interesting. Okay. Well, why are we talking about this, technical stuff? Why am I asking you about this technical stuff? Well, first let's talk about what a rate structure is. So the rate structure is basically the way your utility company figures out how to bill you for the energy you use. There are two basic structures: time of use and tiered rates. If you are on a time of use rate structure, you're billed a very low rate from about 9 p.m. at night to about 4 p.m. the next day. These are known as off-peak hours because they include two really important times of the day. One is the nighttime when most people are not using a lot of energy, right? And then the other is morning to 4 p.m., which is when the bright California sun is usually shining. So those times we have less demand for energy because most folks are asleep, and high influx of renewable, wonderful, free energy from the sun, so that keeps those hours as off-peak hours. Peak hours are between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. So if you're on a time of use rate structure, you will be billed a significantly higher rate from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. That's why that suggestion about not washing clothes or not running dishwashers or other large appliances between 4 and 9 p.m. is important. Okay, now time of use rates were made possible by smart meters. Some of you may remember old school analog meters with the little disc that went around in circles that somebody actually had to come out and read it. That's no longer the case. Most of California now has smart meters that send an impulse to your utility company every hour to let them know how much energy you're using. So before smart meters, everyone was on a tiered rate structure. On a tiered rate structure, and it sounds like most of you who've read your bills are still on a tiered rate structure. So a tiered rate structure makes it so that customers get a certain amount of energy, let's say this much energy, at a low rate, the lowest rate. We call that the baseline allowance. And then they get a second amount of energy. Once you use up that first bit of energy, you get a second amount of energy at a higher rate, but still not the highest rate. And then if you use that all up, you get a third amount of energy for an even higher rate. Okay? And so the idea is that this incentivizes people to conserve energy because the less you use, the less you pay. The more you use, the higher rates you end up paying for that energy. So depending on you and your clients' usage patterns, customers could save a lot of money if they can get on time of use, say, for example, and decrease their energy usage from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. And right now, when many of us are sheltering in place at home, we may be also able to modify our energy use in order to save money. Customers can sign on to their account online and compare what their costs would be on different rate structures. So most of the utilities have a comparison tool online. So I recommend that if you have a client who is struggling to pay their bills, you can walk them through logging into their account online, using the comparison tool on the website, and then see which rate structure would really benefit them the most. Now, finally, the last strategy I will share with you is that customers should pay what they can, even if it's just a little bit every month. Anything that helps customers come out of the moratorium with less debt is important because we anticipate that hundreds of thousands of customers will be eligible to be shut off by their utility companies come June 2021 or whenever the moratorium ultimately ends. So keeping debt as small as possible before then maximizes the possibility that a customer will be able to get a reasonable and affordable payment plan once the moratorium ends. So I'm going to close out with our last slide, please, Jorge. What can you do to make an impact? If you're not already signed up at turn.org/actions, I would encourage you to do that. You will get our online action alerts. You will learn about additional trainings in this series. which we also encourage you to sign up for, especially for some of those. I know some of you all are veterans in this space. So the one training that is completely new this time is that arrearage management plan training. We think this is going to be a really important tool. So help us get the word out for additional trainings. Sign up for any other trainings that might be useful to you. Look out for upcoming opportunities to take action, like speaking up at a public hearing. Those permanent protections we won because folks like you came out and shared the stories of your clients, the stories of people, everyday people that you come into contact with the decision makers. They need to hear what it means for everyday people to experience yet another rate hike. After this training, you will, as I said before, get copies of all of our fact sheets in English and Spanish. We encourage you to disseminate them, reproduce them, email them, use them as a resource for your clients.
Okay. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us.